Well guys, we have some massive news from Ford, and that is of course last night they unveiled the brand new electric F-150, which is called, I love the name, the Ford F-150 Lightning, as an homage to the original Lightning obviously. And in this video I want to take that design of the new F-150 Lightning and turn it into an even better homage to the original. So we're gonna make it a single cab, and we're gonna lower it, we're gonna add some beefier tires, and just make it overall a more sporty looking truck, just like the original F-150. But let's talk about the new F-150 Lightning here as we redesign it into an homage to the original one. It's powered by two motors, so all of the specs and trim levels all have dual motors, and they all have all-wheel drive. The power is up to 563 horsepower in an F-150, 775 pound-feet of instantaneous torque. That's more than any F-150 ever. And the 0 to 60 time is completed in the mid 4-second range when equipped with an extended range battery. So what about the range here for the F-150? I think that is a pretty important topic because they're probably going to be used a lot in commercial situations. So range is more important here than it would be for any consumer or day-to-day daily driver. So they claim that the pickup, the Lightning here, is going to have a range of 300 miles and a charging time of around 40 minutes to go from 15 to 80% of charge. And this is pretty standard these days. You have 35 to 45 minutes to go from this range, say 10 to 80%. So it seems like it's in there with the rest of the EVs that we have out in the market today. And it also has a 10,000 pound towing capacity, which is 5,000 less than the top gasoline powered models from Ford. Pricing is expected to range from $42,000, but this is for a base model, which hasn't even been announced yet. You haven't seen the base model yet, but it's going to start around $42,000 for that base model, and then it goes up to close to, or I don't know if it's even over $90,000 for a loaded platinum model. And the Lightning will go on sale early spring 2022. Now, as I said, two battery packs are available here with 230 and 300 miles, and all models have dual motors and all-wheel drive, which is kind of expected since it is an F-150 truck. Now, what I want to do here is to make, since it has 563 horsepower and 775 pound-feet of torque and it's electric, I love the name, first of all, the Lightning. I think it's a great marketing idea by Ford to add the Lightning name to this. But if we think about the original Lightning from 1999, V8, 5.4 liter V8, 360 horsepower, that went up to 380 in 2004, I believe. 0 to 60 in about 5.2 seconds. It was lowered, it was a single cab, the rear tires were 295 millimeters wide, and it doesn't really look like this Lightning that we have today. And I understand it's not supposed to be an upgraded SVT Lightning. This is supposed to be a brand new Ford electric truck. So that's kind of what I got the idea. So why not take this? By the way, I think this is a beautiful approach to the design. I love the design sketches of the project, the Lightning project. I always like to go back and look at the sketches from the project, even though I'm pretty sure that all of these press sketches that you see from any launches of cars, most of the time they've been completed after the fact that the design has already been nailed down. They just release them as for press material to kind of have some backstory to the design. But I always like to go back and check the sketches, because the sketches to me is where you really see the idea of what we're trying to visualize with the car, and you always get the feeling of what the designers wanted to communicate. You get that better in sketches than, for example, 3D models. And it's also great art to look at. And same thing with the F-150 sketches that we talked about when that came out, the new 2021 F-150. Ford has a lot of fun with these sketches because I love these situational sketches and these pieces of art when you see how the vehicle is intended to be used and so on. It's very beautifully done, and I think getting these sketches and then trying to make that into reality, it's always a challenge for engineers to kind of capture that feeling of the sketches, the proportions and the stance, but I think they did a good job here, and that's across the board of EVs. EVs today, when we see the sketches and when we see the original sketches and the design and the proportions, it's very hard to take that into production. But when you have EVs, it seems like that's becoming more and more normal to have the same kind of proportions of the sketches and then take that into production, if that makes sense. Audi e-tron GT is a great example of this. If that was an internal combustion engine, the proportions of the Audi e-tron GT would never have looked the way they look. But since it's an EV, you're allowed to make the sketch almost into a reality with a low hood, no engine and so on. But this is pretty much a regular Ford F-150 body. But what's really weird when I saw the video for this is when you open the hood, the front hood, normally, since it looks like just any other F-150, it's really weird to see this massive second trunk in the front. So there's no engine, obviously. It's just a whole battery pack skateboard with 2 motors on each axle that don't really take up too much height, which means that even though you have a motor on the front axle, you still have a lot of height left to add a second frunk in the front. And it looks very cool, and I think this is going to be a huge selling point for Ford as well, because you have all these connections in the front and in the trunk as well for all your tools and power supplies and so on. So it's a cool idea, and I think the proportions and the style of the F-150 works great as an EV because you have so much space. You have the center, which is the greenhouse, you have that space, then you have the front, and then you have the bed as well. So you have a lot of space for any stuff you want to just put on in the truck. So not talking about this redesign here, I wasn't sure I wanted to keep the dirt bike on the back there, but I decided to keep it anyway because it just fits the overall situation here. They're out in the woods. I was trying to get a picture of the new lighting here in a sort of city environment, because obviously if you have an SVT lighting, the old 99, I don't think that would do too well out in the woods like this. But hey, maybe you want to take your chances and just bring the SVT lighting out for a camping trip. Who knows, it might go well. You might get stuck with those 295 tires in the rear. But anyway, I used this photo and of course shortened the wheelbase, because the original SVT lighting was a single cab, and that's what I want to have here as well, obviously. That's the whole point of the Lightning, the original one, in my opinion, is the kind of almost comical proportions when you look at it, because you're so used to seeing crew cabs in these trucks, and so when you see a single cab, it looks almost unnatural, but it looks also a bit sportier. It feels like it could actually be a fun vehicle to drive because of the short proportions and the big wheels and the lowered stance, which makes maybe handling maybe make it into a good handling vehicle as well. So those are the things that I was focused on here to try and redesign the Ford F-150 Lightning, and I had a lot of fun with this. One big challenge was to how, if we're gonna cut the rear and smush it together, and we have this super busy background, like how are we gonna fix that to make it look like it's not photoshopped? So you have to kind of copy some of the backgrounds and just paste it over some of the parts and make some very small details, but that goes on in the background that really doesn't show. But it's a lot of work to make this background work with a totally new body. Same with the wheels here, trying to get it, because you have this dust coming from the front wheels, so that was also a challenge. How do I make that look real in the rear tire here, or the rear wheel? So the contrast and the exposure of the rear wheel is different than we have on the front wheel. It's more toned down. The blacks are not as strong, since we have a layer of dust from between us and the wheel in the rear, but we don't really have that in the front wheel. So the front wheel has more contrast, more darker blacks, but at the same time we have to change that for the rear because of the dust. So a lot going on here, and as a final touch here, I wanted to just make some other adjustments to the design other than just the wheels, and that would be to make it look sportier, and that would be the front lip here, or the front bumper, whatever you want to call that thing in the lower part of the front. I think that just adds to the overall sportiness of the car, and I would love to see Ford doing something like this. It would be really cool to see them bring out a proper SVT lighting, single cab, based on the electric lighting. Obviously, it would just be a cool idea, and I would love to see something like this out on the roads. You still have, even though it's a single cab here, you still have a lot of space to store stuff, since the entire front is just basically storage, as well as the greenhouse, and then you have the bed as well. So that's my quick redesign. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the like button. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel. I do this kind of videos every single week. Take care. I will see you in the next one.